The United States is not planning to repay its $38 trillion debt. It is betting that you will, not through taxes, but through time, through inflation, through quietly shrinking the buying power of every dollar in your account. The debt is not crashing the system, it is becoming the system. And as history shows, when a nation cannot cut, cannot default, and dares not admit the truth, it begins erasing the numbers by erasing the value behind them. This is not a crisis, it is the plan, and you are funding it. In Times Square, the national debt clock ticks relentlessly upward as of now. The number has pushed past $35 trillion and is accelerating toward $38 trillion. For most people, it is just a number too big to grasp and too distant to feel. But in 2024, that number started doing something it had never done before. It began to change the budget of the United States for the first time in history. Interest payments on America's debt now exceed the national defense budget. The government spends more to service its past promises than it does to prepare for future threats, more than Medicaid. More than almost anything else, the U.S. is now spending close to $1 trillion per year in interest just to stay current. And because most of its spending is mandatory Social Security, Medicare, federal pension cuts are politically impossible. This creates what economists call a debt spiral as interest payments grow. The government borrows more to pay them. That new borrowing adds more debt, which increases next year's interest payments, which requires even more borrowing. Imagine paying a credit card bill by opening a new credit card. Now imagine that card charges higher interest every month, and you are required to pay it with borrowed money you do not control. That is the U.S. fiscal position in 2024. The worst part: nothing has to break suddenly. The spiral grows silently, and at a certain point, it feeds on itself faster than the economy can grow. This is not a future problem. This is what the system is doing right now. A debt burden this large, $38 trillion, cannot simply be ignored. But the mathematical options to deal with it are shockingly limited. There are only 3 traditional escape routes for a nation carrying a debt load it cannot manage, and 2 of them are nearly impossible in America today. Option 1. Austerity/spending. Raise taxes, balance the budget. Start paying it down, but in the U.S., most spending is mandatory, locked in by law and political survival. Social Security, Medicare, safety nets, and interest itself make up the majority of the budget. Cutting them would trigger a political uprising. And any politician who proposes 70% income taxes or slashes retirement benefits is all but guaranteed to lose their next election. So, real austerity. It is off the table. Option 2. Default, just walk away. Refuse to pay the debt. Announce bankruptcy, only problem: the United States is the issuer of the global reserve currency. U.S. Treasury bonds are considered risk-free by almost every bank, pension fund, and central bank on earth. A default by the U.S. does not just hurt America. It would collapse the entire global financial system overnight. That option. Also, off the table. Option 3. Soft default through inflation. This is the path every declining empire has chosen. Pay your debt in full, but in devalued dollars, print the difference. Shrink the debt in real terms. Let inflation outpace interest, quietly wiping debt from the books while appearing responsible. It is elegant, it is brutal, and it is already happening. The government is not saying it cannot pay. It is paying with money that buys less and less every year. And unless something changes, this will not stop. It will accelerate, because it is the only politically viable option left. The government cannot announce a soft default. It cannot stand at the podium and say, "We are going to pay back $38 trillion by making your money worth less." But that is exactly what is happening. And they are doing it with 3 key tools, each subtle, each powerful, and each engineered to move wealth without alerting the public. Tool 1. The captive buyer in a free market. When a borrower becomes too risky, lenders demand higher interest. But the U.S. has a shortcut through banking regulations. The government forces institutions like banks, pension funds, and insurance companies to buy treasury bonds no matter how unattractive. These institutions are required to hold high-quality liquid assets, and by regulation, U.S. debt is at the top of that list. Your pension fund may know the returns are terrible, but it has no choice. It is legally obligated to buy bonds that creates permanent demand, artificial and invisible to most citizens. Tool 2. The broken compass. Official inflation is tied to payout Social Security, inflation-protected bonds. Federal benefits, so it must be kept low, not by lowering prices, but by changing how inflation is measured. Modern CPI includes substitution bias. You cannot afford steak. You must switch to hamburger. Therefore, inflation is less severe. It uses hedonic adjustments. Your new car is more expensive, but it has better features. So no real inflation here either. These tweaks quietly understate the rising cost of living, keeping government payouts lower while real inflation eats away at savers. Tool 3. Fiscal dominance. There was a time when the Federal Reserve was independent. That era is fading today, when foreign buyers stop showing up to bond auctions. The Fed quietly steps in. It prints money to buy government debt. This suppresses interest rates, but dilutes the currency overall. It props up the system while transferring purchasing power out of your wallet. These three tools allow the debt to survive, but the true cost is paid in silence, through every dollar you hold that buys just a little bit less. The national debt is not just a number. It is a machine, and someone has to keep it running. The government may not raise your taxes directly, but it is quietly taking what it needs every day. Through inflation, this is the great wealth transfer of our time. And most people do not even know they are part of it. Here is how it works. When the Federal Reserve prints trillions of dollars and injects that money into the economy, it does not go to average families first. It enters through Wall Street, through banks, asset managers, and corporations. This phenomenon was described by 18th century economist Richard Cantillon and is now known as the Cantillon effect. The money enters the top of the system. Big banks use it to buy stocks, real estate, and companies before prices go up. By the time it trickles down to workers, the money has already caused inflation. Wages rise slowly, rent, groceries, and housing prices rise fast. The result: the bottom 90% are always lagging behind. Your savings account earning 4% is losing value if real inflation is 8%. Your labor buys less each year, even while your salary stays the same. Meanwhile, the government keeps spending freely, and the national debt shrinks by quietly devaluing every dollar in existence. The real contributors to paying down that $38 trillion. It is not the elite. It is not the politicians. It is the middle class, the savers, the wage earners. It is you. And as long as inflation stays slightly above your return, the debt gets lighter for them, and you get poorer quietly. Inflation is the quiet tax, but when that is not enough, governments stop being quiet throughout history. When debt reaches unsustainable levels and the public resists the burden, leaders cross a line from erasing wealth silently to confiscating it directly. It has happened before, in 1933. During the Great Depression, President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed Executive Order 6102. It became illegal for any American citizen to own gold, not because gold was dangerous, but because it was outside the system. It could not be printed. It could not be inflated, so the government simply made it disappear. By force, today, a more advanced tool is being prepared: central bank digital currencies. Central bank digital currencies will replace physical cash with a programmable form of digital money. In theory, this makes payments faster and systems more efficient. But in practice, it eliminates every exit with central bank digital currencies. The government will know every transaction. It can impose spending limits, block undesirable purchases, or even expire your money. And more importantly, it removes your ability to escape inflation by holding cash. If interest rates go negative, there is nowhere to hide. The system will take its share. Combine that with the wealth tracking and taxation systems already built, and you have the makings of total financial control. The final solution to $38 trillion in debt is not just inflation. It is designing a system where no citizen can escape contributing to the solution whether they choose to or not. There will be no headlines that say America has defaulted, no announcements, no ceremonies, no alarm bells, because the truth is, it is already happening. The United States is not repaying its debt. It is simply making the number disappear by making your money worth less. Quietly, consistently, permanently. This is not chaos. It is strategy, not failure, but design and the money that disappears from your savings, from your paycheck, from your grocery budget. That is the payment, that is the cost, that is how $38 trillion gets erased, not through progress, but by dilution. You were never asked to vote on it, but you are paying for it every day. The winners in this game will not be those who trust the system. They will be the ones who saw it, understood it, and acted early. Because the safest path, working hard, saving in cash, holding bonds, is now the one being weaponized against you. There is no crash to wait for, no shock to come. The system is not about to reset. It already is.